Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be discussing some of the criticisms about Tsuru Reef, namely that it's too big or there aren't enough players on it, which I think is probably one of the most ironic statements you could say about a new Battlefield 6 map, right? Because we know people have been asking for larger maps, they've been shouting it from the rooftops, why do we only get small and medium-sized maps? We need something proper, grand and large scale with all-out warfare, all the vehicles on there. We finally got it, and still people find a reason to complain about that. Now that is not to say by any stretch of the imagination that the map doesn't have any problems, it does, and so in this video I think we should go over some of those, what I think some players are missing, maybe a playstyle change could help them in their troubles on the map, but also some things that DICE and the Battlefield studios could do themselves to improve the flow a little bit and just the feeling of playing it. So as always guys, if you enjoy the content here, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of the Battlefield 6 news and other goodness, and without further ado, let's just jump in here. So the thing about the Battlefield community is that there are just all different people from different walks of life who enjoy different things in the game, and along with that comes different playstyles. Some people like to play infantry and they enjoy a good meat grinder. Some people play only vehicles, maybe like only the jet or only the helicopter. Some people like to mix it up and do like a bit of everything, like myself. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades players these days. And so basically, if you think about it, whatever sort of map Battlefield Studios decide to bring out for a new season, you can't really manage to please everybody. And I think we saw some similar opinions that we're seeing on Tsuru Reef around Goldmud Railway as well. Some people really enjoyed it, and it occurred to me that most of those players are those who enjoy playing in vehicles. People like myself. People who really like infantry gameplay and they play Breakthrough and Rush and Obliteration and Deathmatch and those sorts of small, more action-packed game modes. Those sort of players didn't really have much of a good time on Goldmud Railway, and I think the same holds true here, to some degree at least, for Tsuru Reef. And this is really a problem of Battlefield Studios is making because they only release one map at a time. Back in the good old days when we had Premium and every map pack had 4 different maps on it, you got a smattering of maps that catered to all of the different playstyles within the Battlefield community. They did have a theme, so you may have had like the Close Quarters DLC back in Battlefield 3, you know, all of those maps were quite small and infantry only. That was sort of like a one-off, but generally speaking, whatever the theme was, you would have some maps that were larger with more vehicles on there, and some that were slightly smaller and had a bit more of an infantry focus. And so if you didn't like one of the maps in that map pack, at least you had a good time on 1 or 2 of them and you could just skip the ones that you didn't like. But these days, we're getting one map at a time, and so everybody's getting hyped about the one singular map that comes out, and if it's not particularly handcrafted for your playstyle, I think some people just aren't having that good of a time in it because of that. Now, I understand the sentiment of people saying it doesn't feel like there aren't enough players. I think infantry players on Tsuru Reef tend to stay around a single island because traversing from island to island is very treacherous on this map. There are snipers all over the place. There aren't too many, you know, connecting walkways and bridges and things like that between the islands. And so I think a lot of players tend to sort of stay on that single island. And if there aren't many enemy players around, it does feel a little bit deserted. But that being said, the effect that this has had on the flow or the pacing of the game is that it's slowed things down a little bit. All of these fast-paced, high TTK maps that we had in the game that were criticized at launch, where people felt like they had to be, you know, taking some sort of drug or something to like stay focused and stay up with the pace of the game, there are so many of those already in Battlefield 6, and so I feel like a map like this where it's a little bit more laid back, you do have some quiet moments to take a breath and run from island to island or objective to objective, is exactly what a lot of players have been asking for, and it does fill that niche for people who don't enjoy the super fast-paced crazy combat that a lot of other Battlefield 6 maps offer up on. So if you're somebody who is enjoying the map for what it's worth and you think it's great that it's laid back, good for you. For the people out there who feel though like it needs more players or the map is just too large, I think there's some things those players could do to improve the experience for themselves, and I think there's some things that the Battlefield Studios or DICE could do as well. So firstly, take it from me as somebody who's played vehicles, infantry, everything. If you've never stepped foot in a vehicle, now is the time. These massive maps like Goldmud Railway, Suru Reef, as soon as you start screwing around in vehicles and you know, trying to improve in them, you're going to have so much better of a time. Playing the AFVs, playing in the helicopters, the jets, which allow you to traverse around the map so much easier, is just a great time on these maps. And if you don't know where to start, take a look at my channel. I've usually got some tutorials on how to fly the jets. I've recently done one on the helicopters. There will be one coming on the attack boats soon as well, although the attack boats do have quite a lot of problems, and I'm going to cover that in a separate video, so let's not get off tangent here. So even if you're not playing in a vehicle and going ham on the enemy team, you know, get in a transport helicopter. Use that to get from objective to objective, maybe land on a flag, cap that, get back in that helicopter, go over to the next flag, try and find an ATV, try and find any transportation vehicle that you can to take you from island to island, and that is sort of how you have to play this map, in my opinion. You sort of have to really look around and follow the action. Now, like I said, I do think there's some stuff that Battlefield Studios could be doing to improve the flow a little bit here as well. One problem I've seen a lot of players talk about is that if you don't immediately get in a transport vehicle at the start of the round, you're basically left high and dry on an island, and you've got to swim across to get to the start of the game. So usually then you have to suicide yourself and spawn on a teammate or spawn on a flag. So it feels like there should be not just more transport vehicles on the actual spawn point, on the deployment point, but on all of the flags around the map. I think it's a massive miss here that we don't have jet skis. There could be more rib boats. Back in Battlefield 4, the attack boats actually used to spawn jet skis out the back of them. So if you would spawn on the boat, and by the way, the boat in those games, I think it had 4 seats in there. The attack boats in Battlefield 6 only have 2 seats, which again, doesn't really lend itself well to getting around the map. But yeah, you used to be able to spawn jet skis by hitting F5 out the back of there. The Battlefield 6 attack boats, however, do have a spawning system, and basically if you beach the boat, it puts down a ramp, and then it acts as a, well, not really a mobile spawn point, because now you've beached the vehicle, so it's now an immobile spawn point. And this really contradicts the role of the vehicle. The vehicle is supposed to be out on the water, supporting the team, doing damage to the enemy team. You're not supposed to beach it so your team can use it as a spawn point. So I don't really fully understand that mechanic. I guess it's like, oh, well, I've beached the boat and I guess we can use it for something. But surely it would be better if the boat just exploded and somebody else could spawn in a new one and use it as the attack boat is actually intended to be used, right? So that's like a bit of a weird decision from Battlefield Studios, in my opinion. I think it worked much better when you could just spawn on it, like I say, in BF4 and just get on a jet ski and then go to whatever objective you wanted to. Amphibious vehicles as well. I really think that was a massive miss to not have some sort of new version of the IFVs, you know, that are amphibious and can go in the water and help you traverse from flag to flag, even if it's just over a small area of water, not going off into the ocean. These, again, existed in Battlefield 4, and Battlefield 4 had a lot of naval warfare maps. So why they didn't do that is beyond me. Maybe it's a tech reason or something like that. Maybe they just didn't have the development time, but I think all those things, adding it to the game, if they can manage to do that, will make a massive difference. There is going to be a mid-season patch, like before we get the next phase on the 18th of August, so I'm maybe like a tiny bit hopeful that maybe some developers will see this video and they'll hear the feedback from you guys as well, and maybe, just maybe, they could add some of this stuff in, but I would still say don't hold your breath. I think the best we can probably hope for is that they just add more of the transport vehicles that we already have on the map. So honestly, right now, I feel like there's a really good mix of maps in Battlefield 6. Like, there is something for everybody there. If you're an infantry guy, you've got these smaller infantry maps. If you want medium-sized maps like Siege of Cairo and Cairo Bazaar and stuff like that, where you've got just like maybe 1 or 2 vehicles, but it's mostly infantry, those exist as well. And now, finally, we've actually got some large maps, because the largest maps in Battlefield 6 on launch, Mirak Valley, Operation Firestorm, they just really aren't that good and enjoyable, in my opinion. I think Golmud Railway and now Tsuru Reef are far and above some of the best maps in the game, at least when it comes to the larger scale ones. Now, considering that the other map we're going to be getting in Season 4 is Wake Island, which is probably not going to be quite the same size as Suru Reef, but it's still going to be a big map. It's going to have attack boats, it's going to have jets, it's going to have helicopters, all that sort of stuff. So I would really, as a Battlefield player, if you aren't already, try and embrace that all-out warfare lifestyle, try and embrace being a jack of all trades, or at least dabbling in some of the vehicles that you haven't tried before. And then, you know, rolling on to Season 5, we're probably going to see some smaller maps or some medium-sized maps, and then the other half of the Battlefield community will begin to complain again. So there you go. You can't please everybody, right? Guys, as always, leave me your thoughts below. Let me know what you think about this. How are you finding the map? Like, do you feel like it is actually too big? Are there too few players on there? You know, I do find it incredibly ironic that people are actually saying this, especially since we've had 128 players in Battlefield 2042. Guys, we all know how that turned out. We all know what the maps look like in that game. It was the cause and the root of so many issues with it, so I will probably be the last person to push for a much larger player count than 64 players. But that's just me, so let me know what you think down below in the comments. Thank you guys as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, that always helps me out a ton. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you want to stay up to date with all of the Battlefield 6 goodness. I'll see you guys in the next one.